Welcome to Chris Strub Unmuted. I'm Chris Strub, and today we're talking about a love of discovery and exploration. Get out and experience new cultures, new places. Book that trip. What are you waiting for? This is Chris Strub Unmuted, a show designed for open dialogue, honest reflection, and uncensored truths about the lives that we lead. Today's episode looks at the love of discovery and exploration, something that I really feel like is going to be on my tombstone someday. If you know anything about Chris Strub at all, and don't feel like you have to, if you're new here, welcome on in. But so much of my adult life over the last 15, 20 years has been tied to this idea of loving, genuinely loving, getting out there and exploring, finding new ideas, new experiences, connecting with new people, ending up in new places, trying new things, and really defining who you are through a lens of the combined experiences that you choose to bring in to your world and your mind. I love traveling. I love seeing new places. I love seeing how other people in other communities, in other states, in other cities, and hopefully in the future, more of this in other countries and other continents. You know, I'm getting older, but I ain't that old yet. I think there's a whole next era of Chris Strub exploration to come, hopefully. But as I sit here now in early 2026, the love that I've expressed for discovering these new places, these new people, these new ways of doing things along the way has really defined who Chris Strub is at his core, at my core. Just awkwardly flip between first and third person here. Why not? It's my podcast. I get to do what I want, right? I can't imagine a life where you don't go out and actively try to explore new things and encounter new places. You know, no disrespect to anyone that stays where you are your whole life. And oftentimes, I always try and recognize how sometimes I feel like I'm speaking from a place of privilege. Again, being a straight, cisgender, white guy from New York, certainly wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth or anything, but there are a lot of circumstances, I think, sometimes that make travel and exploration feel privileged. So I acknowledge that, right? So if you aren't able to get out and travel and explore, one fun thing to do, of course, is, we can all, at least almost all of us, and if you're watching or listening to this, you've got high-speed internet likely. The very least, you can explore and see and breathe in and see what things are like through the lens of other people and specifically creators, right? Hopefully, I've helped introduce new cultures and new places and new people to you through the pages of like my book, 50 States, 100 Days, the book. And then the follow-up to the first book, I'll always love an excuse to show off Fight for Good Tour, the book. That these two books, you can see on the back there, if you're watching on YouTube, we'll focus the camera there for you. You can see the dots on the maps of where I've been able to travel and chronicle a lot of these travels. These adventures don't happen without an inherent love of getting out and exploring and meeting new people, seeing new places. As I talked about in another episode this season, trying new foods, right? Like there's this decision that if you're fortunate enough to be able to make it, I really, really want to emphasize to you to go ahead and do it, to book that trip, to get out and even go for a little road trip. And it doesn't, I've said this many times before. I said this in 50 States, 100 Days, the film. I would not recommend you trying to go do 50 states in 100 days. Boy, was this tough. But I do strongly encourage you to get out and try and find somewhere new to go, even if it's just for the weekend. Oh, heck, even if it's just for the day, right? Go to a different part of your neighborhood and go meet your neighbors that might be outside if it's not 0 degrees out like it's been here in Greenville lately. Go to a new side of the city. Go a couple exits down the highway and go explore there. It doesn't need to be interstate travel. It doesn't need to be international travel to still appreciate those feelings of getting out and trying something new, right? When we live inside our own conformed boxes, we're really failing to understand, in my opinion, what life is about, right? We weren't born, we weren't created as humans to sit or stand in one place our whole life. We weren't, right? And the experiences that I've been blessed to have over the years, I don't think I could ever put a dollar value on what those experiences have meant to me as a human being. You know, when you get out and you meet other people, there's just so many different dimensions of learning that immediately take place when you wake up and open your eyes in a new city or a new state. Right. And I honestly, I sincerely cannot imagine being 40 years old right now and not having at least left New York, you know, and it's wild to me to think about what a confined life, what the consequences of living a life where you don't feel that desire to go out and explore or like, you know, how can you know what type of people you enjoy connecting with? How can you appreciate what other, even if not cultures, just other communities are into, right? And you know, we talk about the tastes of other places, but just the environments. You know, I think about the love that I feel for being out in a place like Colorado, where you know you're up a mile high and you're breathing that cleaner, thinner air, and just it's like you're in a different world, right? Being down in New Orleans, where you're in the heart of this French Quarter, and the whole culture just feels like you're in a whole new world. You know, you're in a you truly feel like you're on a different planet sometimes when you are enveloped by the in many cases the loving, empathetic cultures that surround you, right? I can't imagine a life not having been to, you know, the deep hot parts of Texas, or seeing the Southern California coast, the Santa Monica Pier. Um, Again, maybe you haven't yet been able to make it up to Anchorage, where it's completely bright out in the middle of the summer at midnight. You know, you get an hour of darkness per day up as you get closer to the Arctic Circle, or even the sunburn that I felt out in Honolulu. uh, during 50 States, 100 Days, which again, you can read about in the book, just the worst sunburn you can possibly imagine coming back from Waikiki and completing that final third of 50 States, 100 Days. And the dual reason why I'm wearing a Greenville Drive jersey and a hat right now is one, I'm starting already. This is the third episode that I'm recording here for our February season, and I'm already starting to run out of red clothing. But the idea that if I had stayed, well, boy, I haven't even ever really thought about if I had just stayed on Long Island and never left Long Island, because my journey to exploration really started when I graduated from high school and traveled up to Binghamton University in upstate New York. I've got my Binghamton stuff up here in front of me on my wall. But that was my first real foray, not just into not living at home anymore, but really getting to meet a lot of the international students in Binghamton. You know, I worked for the school newspaper, and being a big sports guy, I was a sports reporter and then became the sports editor of the paper. And so kind of had my pick of the litter to be able to choose which sports teams I would get to communicate with and cover. And it was incredible to get to see one, you know, D1 athletes performing at their very best. You know, we had some great teams back in the day, especially like the men's soccer team, the women's soccer team. I covered the women's tennis team. Getting to meet someone like Zeynep Altanay, who I still consider a friend today. Shout out to Z. She's a Binghamton University Athletics Hall of Fame tennis player from Turkey. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. It's Turkey. I don't know why my dentist is calling me right now, so we'll let that go to voicemail. But getting a chance to meet and learn about cultures through some of these incredibly talented and special individuals who had come to Binghamton from around the world through the lens of the Binghamton Athletics program meant a lot to me. And I think that really ended up sparking a lot of my love for wanting to get out and experience a lot of these different cultures eventually when I went out in 2014 and visited 48 states in 90 days. And that is the long-winded way to explain why I'm all Greenville Drived up here. And earlier this week, I was at the Greenville Drive hot stove event at Floor Field. I live in Greenville because I made a conscious decision to get out and explore the country. Never been to South Carolina before, never heard of Greenville before. And now I end up, buying a house here, calling this my home for the better part of the last decade and probably decades to come now, right? You know, that love of getting out, and you can hear me talk more about my love of Greenville back in the first season. I did an episode on Greenville, and I can spoil here now too that we'll definitely be talking more about Greenville and talking to people here in Greenville in future seasons of Chris Strub Unmuted. So stay tuned for that. I know a lot of you guys would love to hear that, but please, if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Get out and experience new cultures, new places. Book that trip. What are you waiting for? For me, travel and discovery and exploration is really tied to love. I love encountering new places, new faces, new experiences, new foods, new cultures, new bits of history as well. Man, you know, I think back now on, as I sip more of my C4, which is not quite yet sponsoring Chris Chubb Unmuted, but we're going to get there. I think back to the museums that I've been to in places like Jackson, Mississippi, you know, and getting to be immersed directly in the checkered, to put it mildly, history of the United States, and confronting some of those difficult truths about where we've come from as a society. And it's important to me to express as we start to wrap up this episode here that those confrontations and those conversations that you have out on the road when you're meeting new people, just go sit at the bar and talk to the bartender for a while. Or get out, go to the museum, go to the park, go to the library, go talk to, go to the restaurants wherever you're heading. It's those interactions that help us not just build a better society and a healthier society and a more connected society moving forward, especially in light of all of the awful things. I want to curse here, but I'm imagining my producer listening through this episode and having to put that little E, because some of the episodes in the first season back in January were explicit. I have a lot of strong feelings about what's been happening in Minneapolis and across the country. I'm trying to keep these episodes 100% family friendly. But I really feel like a lot of these solutions, as difficult and as far off as they may be, start to come when you embrace that love of other cultures, of other people, of other places through exploration. And, if you asked me when I was 10 years old, 15 years old, hey, Chris, do you think you're going to live in Greenville, South Carolina when you're 40? I would have said, what is Greenville, South Carolina? But when you really get out and try to experience new things, you're not going to love everything or even everyone that you come across. But as I look around my house and I think about the books that I've written and, the content that I consume on a regular basis and the people that I call friends, I can't imagine a life where I didn't make a conscious decision to really lovingly open up to all the places that I've been to, all the people that I meet. And that love has led me to a new, better life here in Greenville, South Carolina that would have never happened if I didn't get out and act upon that love of discovery and of exploration that has become truly inherent to who that was a motorcycle speeding by. Don't love motorcycles speeding past my house as I'm recording. But everything that I see here, everything that I look around, from going to newspaper club in junior high school and becoming, the editor of the paper as I grew up in junior high school, the Dispatch in high school, Pipe Dream at Binghamton University, working at the Press and Sun Bulletin, and now at the Watertown Daily Times. I discovered that was something in me that I loved, was being a storyteller. And speaking to a camera here in my house alone in 2026 is a lot different than storytelling might have been in 1996. Good Lord. 1996, when I would have started working for a newspaper for the first time. Choosing to go to Binghamton University, slightly outside of my comfort zone in Suffolk County on Long Island. And then choosing to go on these crazy road trips in 2014, 2015, then with the Salvation Army in 2017, plus some other less organized trips along the way. Every one of those experiences has added up to who I am and what I love about our culture and our society today. And I hope that this episode inspires you to get out, literally, get out of the town that you're in right now. Get out of your house. Get out and try new things. Get out and book that adventure. Tell me in the comments, when was a time in your life that you booked a trip, and how did that adventure change you for the better? And did you discover things through those adventures that you have come to love as part of how you've matured as a human being, as time has passed for you as well? Let me know. I'm genuinely very curious, because without the experiences that I've had, I would not be the man that I am now. And I have to imagine in similar ways that the experiences that you've had, however expansive or limited they may be or feel right now, have also contributed to the person that you are as you listen to an episode like this. Thanks for listening to Chris Strub Unmuted. Support the show by clicking like and subscribe. Keep up with me on social media at Chris Strub. And remember, we are all famous to a few people.